Hi, everyone.
Hello, people.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. What month are we? It's still February.
It is still February, but you want some really good news?
The days are getting longer. March is coming. Spring is coming.
Next weekend is March. The next weekend is daylight savings time.
Shut the front door.
I looked at that this morning and did a happy dance.
That is the weekend that I get back from my go trip.
Mm-hmm. We made it. We get more sunlight.
Praise Jesus.
All of us who suffer from seasonal affective disorder, sad.
Praise Jesus.
We're about to be happier naturally because of all this good sunlight.
Well, the snow came, and then this week's weather, Wednesday, everyone, I don't care what you do, Angela Snyder, you have your meetings outside. You take your phone calls outside. The high, it changes, but it's between...
this coming Wednesday?
This coming Wednesday is between 65 and 70.
Stop. With
Not
sunshine?
even kidding. Yes.
We're going to have Bible study in the sunshine.
So I will not be there probably on Wednesday night.
Boo.
But because I'm getting ready for this go trip.
Oh, that's right.
But I'm serious. Everything that you do on Wednesday needs to be outside. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. See? It's all good. We're going to make it.
Yep.
We're going to make it.
Anyway, okay. Hi, everyone.
Hello,
what are we going to talk
people.
about? What conversations are you going to listen in on today?
Well, you know, it's just two best friends and all our shenanigans
Listen.
getting caught up on life because you and
Listen.
I have a lot to talk about and they're just going to have to be here for it.
Yeah, a lot's happened. So this is basically an extended boxer conversation, and you're going to listen to it. Welcome to the show.
We love y'all and we're sorry for whatever's about to take place here.
It's going to be great.
You're welcome.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be so fun. So what day? Tuesday night, all the snow decided to arrive.
Yeah, whatever.
And I was scheduled to leave Wednesday morning for a work trip. And then when we looked at the radar, we thought, oh, well, that's not going to work because we'll be in the middle of the weather. So we left Tuesday night and arrived for the very first time in New Orleans at 1 a.m. because
How far of a drive is that? 7 hours?
It was 6 hours and 46 minutes from
Okay.
my driveway to the hotel. And the plan was to just get out ahead of the weather and stop around Madison, Mississippi, which is right outside Jackson. I heard from multiple people that's a great place to stop. Well, apparently it's such a great place to stop that every hotel was booked.
I wonder if the weather was a part of that too.
Well,
because you're like, it's not even like summer season, spring
No.
break season. What's happening?
And it's a random Tuesday. So just, you know, if this affects you in any way, it's as much as I love to talk about travel, I had never thought about this before. But I finally got off these little websites and started calling hotels thinking, well, surely
the
this is
old-fashioned
wrong.
way.
Somebody give me a room.
I need a phone call,
Yes,
please.
because I thought surely y'all have a few set aside for your margin
Right.
of error.
Right.
Nope. But what they told me was, I said, why are all these hotels booked? What is
Yeah.
going on there? And they said that they have a lot of work conferences that always have a check-in on a Monday or a Tuesday. So he
Okay.
said if you're ever traveling during the week, you're going to have a hard time if it's a Monday or Tuesday check-in.
Huh, who knew?
Never thought about that
Nope.
before. So it was about 10:30 when we came through Madison because it took us, well, let me back way up. We got ready to leave and Angela had a flat tire.
I'm kind of not surprised by this. I feel like that's kind of the way things go for you.
Yes. And what was funny but not funny is the night before, Carl's driving my car and I get the alert. My car loves to do dings and whistles and bells and so many informational
So many
noises.
alarms.
So many alarms that we almost just kind of disregard all
Yeah.
of them now because
Oh, yeah.
it's always talking.
Right.
It never stops talking. So
Wouldn't it be fun if your car, when you got in it in the morning, it said, "Good morning, Angela"?
do you remember the episode of Reba where Barbara Jean starts talking to the guy in the car, like the OnStar person? That's one of the funniest
OnStar.
episodes.
Is that a thing anymore?
It is for Chevrolet. Because I used it an embarrassing number of times to unlock when I lock my keys in my car.
I'd forgotten about OnStar.
Yes, Chevrolet products have OnStar. I do
Okay.
not. I do not have that in my vehicle.
Okay.
But, okay, so it tells me my tires are low, and my husband immediately says, it always says that in the cold weather.
Right.
You're
Oh,
fine.
for sure. Yes.
And
We all kind of ignore that in the cold weather.
Normally he's correct, but I'm starting
Except
to
for
get
this time.
trust issues because I'm like, okay, you always say that. And then I had to drive to Milan the next morning, which is about 45 minutes from my house to do a mediation before we left for the trip. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be on the road in the morning. I just want to look and see what my tire pressure is. So I pull it up on the screen, and it says that I have 20 pounds of pressure.
Oh no.
And my other 3 tires are at 42.
Oh, yeah. This is a problem. We all know that.
So as we're on the interstate, probably
dang.
10 minutes from my house.
Oh, dang.
And it goes from 20
Yeah.
to 15.
That's terrifying. That's happened to me before,
To
too.
12.
And you just think, well, okay.
to 8. We pull in my driveway, and we are on 3.
Oh, yeah.
3.
Flat.
So the next morning, I have to be in Milan at 9. I have to leave my house at 8. And I'm looking at Carl going, what are we going to do here? So God love that man. He is so patient and kind with all the crazy I bring into his life. So he drove me to Milan, came back to Denmark, Tennessee, to get my tire and take it to a tire place to try to have them fix it. Well, nobody locally has these tires.
Yeah.
So he finds somebody in Memphis that can bring them over. All this to say, by the end of Tuesday, Carl had taken me to Milan, gone back to Denmark, taken a tire to Jackson, come to Milan to get me, had to go back to my house. No, had to go back to the tire shop to get the new tire for the one that was flat, drive it home and put it on my car so he could take my car back to the tire place for the other 3, because all of my tires were in bad shape. We just didn't know it. Thank God. I'm so grateful that we did not get on the road.
Because you could have been in the middle of somewhere in Mississippi in the dead of night.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it was cold outside.
Yeah, thank you, Lord.
So we didn't get on the road until late. So we arrive in Madison, Mississippi at 10:30 with 4 beautiful new tires and nowhere to sleep. But for whatever, and I'm so grateful for this. Normally, I'm taking some naps on the couch by 8 o'clock and I'm ready for bed by 10. I was wide awake. I was like, hey, do you want me to drive? I'm good. And he was like, no, I'm fine. Because the other thing that happened, we get a text. It's like, welcome to the Omni. We hope you're enjoying your stay. And I was like, hold on a minute. I thought we check in on Wednesday. Well, apparently I had booked the room in November, Tuesday through Friday, not knowing our exact plans because the conference started on Wednesday. So all that to say, we had a room already paid for
Dang
Tuesday.
it all.
So we roll into New Orleans at 1:30 a.m. And the good thing with that is my conference didn't even start until 1 o'clock the next day. So we just took it easy. But y'all, the people listening gave us the best recommendations.
New Orleans.
On where to go and what to do. We had never been before. And I was not excited about it. I had no desire to go to New Orleans. I just imagined all the debauchery and just craziness. And
that does exist.
That does exist. We never saw anything crazy.
Because it was cold.
It was too cold for the crazy. It was so cold that people kept their clothes on and behaved themselves.
Praise God.
Praise God, because I had no desire to be part of anything ridiculous. But I do want to tell you some things about it.
I like New Orleans. New Orleans kind of reminds me of Charleston in that it's got this unique look to it. It's got all this history. It's so beautiful. But Charleston doesn't have like the dark side of New Orleans. But just, there's just so much uniqueness to it. It's got its own flavor. It's got its own little thing going on with the food, the culture, all of it. And I think that's really cool. I'm not a fan of Bourbon Street and that whole scene. I think that's absolutely terrible. But I do think the food and the music and all of that is absolutely phenomenal and amazing.
And every idea I had going into this trip was negative. I'd heard about, voodoo and all the crazy things. But then I started hearing from some families that were like, oh, my boys love to go. And they've got a great World War II museum and a great this. And I thought, well, I've never heard that before.
Right.
So
nobody's pushing that.
Nobody's talked about that. But we, oh, my goodness, we had they call them char-broiled oysters, but they cook them on the grill.
I love me some oysters of any kind. I'll eat them any way.
Well, I've told you my grandmother made fried oysters and saltine crumbs on Christmas Eve every year, and I love fried oysters. I'd never had them char-broiled or grilled. The first meal we had, we had to sit near the bar area because all the tables were full and it was like an hour wait. So we were like, okay, this is definitely where we want to eat. We'll sit anywhere. I'll sit on the floor. Just give me some food. So we got to sit right there at the grill and watch him And I said, when they were covered in Parmesan cheese, and it was just so good. And I was really bragging on him, and he said, I put a lot of passion into my cooking.
Oh, I love that.
I was like, you can tell you put all your heart and soul into this. So then we were so full, but we had to have dessert. They had a pecan cobbler and a bread pudding, and he couldn't choose which one was better. So we got both. I bet I've gained 20 pounds. I don't even care. It was worth it. And then my classes started. I had class that afternoon. We'll talk about that just super quick in a minute. But the next day I had a really long lunch break. So we found another great restaurant. And our Uber driver was an older gentleman. He'd lived there his whole life. And he reminded me of Morgan Freeman. Mm-hmm. He was precious. And he kind of made a joke about they have the tour bus that takes you around and tells you everything for $48 a person.
Good gosh. And
he said, I don't even charge that. I'll just tell you everything I know. So he's driving us. We had a restaurant recommendation in the Garden District it reminded me of New York, some of the neighborhoods and things. And it was near Tulane and Xavier and Loyola. So you had college students all around, and they were setting up for what they call Carnival. All the Fat Tuesday parade things started happening. Actually yesterday as we were leaving town, they were setting up for that. But we were just driving through, and he said, there's Beyonce's house and there's Beyonce's church.
I wonder, I'm sorry, what?
I know there's a church that you could see right behind this mansion. And I don't know if he meant like that's just where she goes to church. I'm glad to know she goes to church. I don't know.
That's a whole nother conversation for another day that I don't know even how to respond to that.
Because
what's going to come out of my mouth is going to be very critical. So I'm going to refrain.
Where's the fruit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay.
So then he said, do y'all remember John Goodman, who played Roseanne's wife on Roseanne? I was like,
Roseanne's husband.
Wife. Roseanne's husband. Thank you. It's too early. I need some caffeine. So John Goodman's house was not real far from there. And he said all the locals love him because he just shows up.
I thought he died. No, he didn't. Okay, I'm thinking of someone else. Sorry.
Well, if he died, that's a whole other level of this conversation. It just got really interesting. But he said he'll show up and watch the game at the local restaurants and hang out. He said it's kind of like Norm on Cheers. When he walks in, everybody gets so excited, and he's just one of the people. So was not surprised by that at all.
I wouldn't expect celebrities to want to live in New Orleans.
I know. Matthew McConaughey has a house there. He showed us Nicolas Cage's house.
But you know what? They got $1 billion. They can buy houses wherever they want.
They got them everywhere.
And not in Jackson, Tennessee, but...
And their houses were just right there on the main... Like, they weren't even secluded or gated, which was interesting. And then they have the trolley that just goes all through. We never rode it, but it was just cool to see. And then that night, we had another really great meal. We ate at a place called Tableau. And everywhere I went, I had to have creme brulee somewhere, but the server always recommended some other dessert. So this night, the server was so sweet. She looked like a college student, and we just really liked her a lot. And she said, well, when's your anniversary? And I said, well, it's not until August. And she said, that's close enough. Yeah. Hold on.
So let's pretend that it's now.
I know. So she comes back with a creme brulee that has congratulations written across it. And I was like, congratulations to us on being married and being here. And, you can congratulate yourselves on lots of things. But it was amazing.
I'm pretty sure that I went to New Orleans with Chip. This was before kids. And I think that we took the Amtrak from Memphis to New Orleans. And we didn't have nearly the trip that you're talking about right now. It was on the more sinful side. And that's probably but I have been back since. Here's the irony. Years later, however old I was, I went to a Beth Moore conference.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You redeemed it all.
I redeemed it all and got to experience New Orleans in a much healthier, appropriate way. But I think it's just fascinating.
It is the history. The restaurant was across the street from the St. Louis Cathedral and Jackson Square, and it was freezing. I know it was cold here too, but the wind chill there was in the 20s.
Yeah, for New Orleans, you're like, this is not what I wanted.
It was 80 last weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
So we hit it right in between. But a lot of people here locally recommended that you get off Bourbon Street and go to a street called Frenchman Street, because Frenchman Street is where it's not touristy, it's where the locals go. So we took an Uber over to Frenchman Street, and the music, I mean, it was just exactly what I had in mind. It was just these darker nightclub type places with older gentlemen in the bands and all the trumpets and the jazz, the soulful. It was just good.
Yeah.
So we just went in some of those, and we did. When we left there, we went back to Bourbon Street. The first night we accidentally wound up. We looked up and saw a street sign, and we were like, "Uh-oh, Bourbon Street! Turn around, go the other way." But it was so cold that people weren't really out doing anything. So we went back to the French Quarter, and as we were walking down a sidewalk, we just stopped because we could hear this music coming out of a place, and it was like, oh my gosh, they are good. So this guy, this huge, he looked like a football lineman. He was like, come on in, no cover charge. We're like, okay. I was scared to tell him no. But we walk in, and it is the best band. And there are two girls up there that I wanted to be best friends with, and they were so cute. And we had so we just sat there and listened to music until what felt like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I started getting tired. I was like, hey, you ready to go? I look at my watch. Guess what time it was?
9:30.
9:58.
Yeah.
Close enough. But I was like, okay. So also, it was cold, and we have an early bedtime. So
Yeah.
that's probably why we had a
Yeah.
sterilized version of New Orleans.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved it. So two funny things to tell you about it. First of all, I took my red light facial machine to New Orleans.
I've yet to take mine out of the box, everyone. It's been a bit of a week, so I'll get to it one day.
Let me tell you
I'm
what.
proud of you for taking it with you.
Well, let me tell you what I've come to love about this, okay? I used to have a very unhealthy relationship with the tanning bed.
Yeah.
I loved to get in the tanning bed on my lunch hour. It was cold outside. I would get in that warm tanning bed and take a nap. This facial.
30 minutes.
Yes.
I remember, like, when I was in high school, good gosh, we could choose an hour to get in that
Yes.
thing.
It's no wonder we're at the dermatologist every
Holy
6 months.
smokeroonies.
So if you're listening and you're doing that, stop it.
Yeah. Well, and this, yeah, you're right. This may be why, like, we love this concept because it takes us back
It takes
to
us back.
ye olden days.
So it doesn't get warm, but what I've learned, it's a 20-minute under the light, and here's what I need in my life that I don't have. It is truly putting myself in timeout.
Yeah.
Because for 20 minutes, I cannot pick up my phone. I can listen to worship music in my AirPods or a podcast, or the first night Reba was on, so I was listening to Reba, and I watched it so much I could see it in my mind and know what was happening. But it is truly a 20-minute timeout.
Disconnect. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 minutes. So highly recommend it. I also learned that you can cycle through all the different colors of light.
Yeah.
There's an option where it get. Now I don't know how effective it is.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Red, blue, yellow, green.
It gives you the whole rainbow
Yeah.
for a few.
What light
at
do
a
you
time.
want today?
Yeah. So that, and then also every time we travel, because we're old people, not only do we have an early bedtime, but I always, and Carl and I both always complain about the pillows.
Yeah, they're too squishy.
They're terrible. And one thing we absolutely love, because we've invested in them, is our pillows from home. So I put fresh pillowcases on our pillows, and I made sure they were the kind that zip up, and I took our pillows.
So
and
happy.
We were so happy, we slept so well. And the last morning I had to get down to class, and Carl his one job was to load up that car, and the bellman,
Dang it.
came. And by the time we get home, our pillows are not in the car, and
Have
it's
you-
10:30 p.m.
Have you called them?
No,
I wonder if they were honest and found them, they'd send them to you.
they might. They're really good pillows.
One time
don't
I
know.
left like two things, like some clothing in a closet, and knew it, like all in the same day of departure. And I called them, and they sent it to me. But you'd have to call like,
Yeah, I don't know. Well, so I got on. I was like, I'll just
it's a
replace
pillow,
them.
people. This is serious.
It is, and these are pillows that apparently other people really like because they're back ordered everywhere.
Well, then maybe even more reason to call them and
Yeah.
see if they found them.
So I have to figure out my pillow
Yeah.
situation. I was really proud
No
of
good.
myself for traveling with pillows, and I thought Fran's going to be so tickled over this light machine traveling with me, but I was very so the whole purpose of me going was this 3-day training. It was very intensive on building a Medicaid planning practice. And I know that sounds horrible to everybody.
It does sound horrible.
But
like, I barely want to listen.
Well, but like once a week.
Oh, I barely want to listen to my own podcast.
For real. But and we're not going to talk about that at all, other than to say once a week somebody calls and says, I'm scared of losing my home if I go into a nursing home or if my mama does or whatever. So I've learned ways to help you keep money in your bank account and keep your house if somebody goes into a nursing home. And that is so important to me for a lot of reasons. People are expressing a fear and a concern, and I have felt so helpless in not having any idea what to tell them. So I love that I've learned some things that are helpful. But the other thing, and I got so excited to tell you about this, and I want us to talk about it with the listeners, because for the first time, not only was it practical, legal, technical things, but it was also life coaching, career coaching. It's a company called Atticus, and it's specifically geared toward lawyers. But it was like if Fran came to a seminar and got us all considering things that need to be considered about life and being intentional and focused. It was like Leadership Union as part of this podcast, as part of this seminar. My brain is so stuffed with words, I don't even know how to make them make sense anymore. I wonder if it was
called Atticus. Wasn't Atticus Finch?
Atticus Finch?
Yeah, from To Kill a Mockingbird.
I have never considered that until right now.
He was a lawyer.
I bet you're right.
Uh-huh.
I bet that's where that came from.
Yeah, look at me.
So, I'm telling you, it's like if Fran came to the seminar, this is what we would be doing. So on the second day, we had 2 full sessions on the legal things we needed to know. And then the other 2 sessions were on having a great life, like creating a great life for yourself. Y'all, they gave us this sheet to fill out, and I've got it in front of me right now because I want us to talk about it because it applies to everybody. But it gave me so much anxiety, I almost walked out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
because your brain is stuffed with all these things they've just taught you for a day and a half. And then they're like, okay, now pick up your pen. We're going to take 10 minutes and you're going to write what you want your legacy for your whole entire lifetime to be.
Well, that's a little overwhelming.
That's
a little daunting.
That's a lot. And then she says, okay, it took me multiple attempts at this. So if you don't know where to begin, that's fine. And also, if you're scared to mess this up, we have extra sheets in the back.
Perfect, because I need 5 of them.
And it's so funny, too, because we talk about community and how we're better together. I have never before, in 24 years of being a lawyer, I have never sat in a room with 30 other attorneys, and they were from Utah, Colorado, Virginia, all over the place. There was one from Tennessee. They put us together. I'm so grateful for that. She's precious. We're now best friends. We'll be doing a lot of this together. But I've never sat in a room of lawyers and considered things in this kind of way.
But Angela, I don't know what you're about to say, but I'm sitting here thinking about this. To me, feels like it falls under you're so much more than a lawyer. You're so much more than a college athlete.
Yes.
You're so much more than whatever title defines you. And so because of that, we have these conversations.
Yes.
We do talk about it. But until it becomes personal to you, like I can only go as so far with you're so much more than a college athlete. 2 of my boys were college athletes. I lived as close to that as I possibly could as their mother, but I wasn't a college athlete. So it's hard for me to like kind of live in that space. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to live in a space of anybody's title other than my own. But you got to make this personal for you. Like you began to explore, who am I? What do I want? What do I want to leave behind? Or what do I want to be known for maybe that's not Angela the lawyer?
Right. And for the first time, my worlds collided. And hear me say, this has nothing to do with being a lawyer, but whatever it is that you identify yourself as the most in your life. And I just had this conversation with one of my kids, like our identity is in Christ. And it's always hard for me. I was happy that my lawyer world collided with the mental health side of this, but I was also sad because I wanted to stand up and say, and Jesus, let's talk about, let's take it one step further. But it's just so, I've never sat there with other attorneys who also have the same answers that I have to a lot of things you and I talk about. And we were all like, oh, we overanalyze, overthink, obsess. We're scared to try anything until we feel like we've mastered all the knowledge of it. And then we, take a shot at helping one of these families because of, not all of that, but some of it at least is because of our training, what the horrible things that happen in law school, just some of those trauma bonds that we had.
Well, and also
that's why I'm that way.
But also too, it's kind of like anybody that works in the medical field, you're supposed to be an expert.
Yeah.
And so there's just this pressure.
So much pressure.
To know everything. Could you imagine? You know that even the best of physicians, they are an expert to a degree, but they don't know everything about everything. And so there is that pressure of I've got to know everything, I've got to be everything, I've got to do everything, and I've got to do it with confidence and expertise. And God forbid that I reveal any kind of flaw or failure or unknowing. And, just people are going to be scared and they're not going to trust me to handle X, Y, and Z.
And we're going to fail.
Yeah.
And what are we going to learn and grow from that? But I've never been told in a context of a seminar like this. She kept saying, whatever's in the past, we're going to leave it in the past. And, make time for work and also for play and for rest, which is some of the things that you and I talk about at Leadership Union during that session. It was like it's finally being spoken out loud in a room of professional people who desperately need it. And to look around that room and see men, women, every age and stage, everybody just exhaled like, oh my goodness, are you telling me that I have permission to not be perfect, to actually have time off? And it was so interesting when we're so performance driven and we're trying so hard not to be, but what steps are being taken in that world?
Well, and I think that we all struggle with, every single person has to struggle with, if you're a believer, you're going to struggle with, do I really trust the Lord to provide, to take care of me? If I surrender my life, my work, my ministry, my family, my children, all the things that matter to me that He has entrusted me with and gifted those opportunities to Him, if I trust Him, what if I rest? What if I don't perform or work or do? It's like we're saying, I just don't think you're going to provide for me. I am in control here.
I hear you say that, but I've got to go.
Yeah,
make it rain.
I'm in control, and it's so sad to me. I see it all the time. I've had tremendous conversations with students this week. That's a follow-up from our previous Leadership Union session. And part of that session, we did talk about rest. Jennifer Delk was our speaker, and she does a lot. She's like a lot of leaders. She has a high capacity, and she's involved in a ton of things. But when you start speaking into rest with especially college students in the environment that we are in here at Union, where we are academically, the academics have a lot of rigor to them, that excellence is a part of who we are, that it's such a fine line. You've got to be careful to not swing them so far over to the performance and achievement that it is absolutely impossible for them to rest. And
how much are we teaching that?
Well, yeah, we're not, because when you bring up any kind of rest, the anxiety just shoots through the roof.
I've never been taught that in 24 years until this training.
Well, and we hear, they hear things like rest, take a Sabbath, blah, blah, blah. They know that. That is not foreign any more than it's foreign to me and you. But we will feel guilty and we will feel like we're behind if we rest. And that to me is so extremely sad, because I feel like the Lord is like, hello, do you trust me to be sovereign and to provide? I mean, I can't imagine. There's so many times in Scripture where the Lord says, don't work for a year. Don't work.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, well, we would have just had a come apart.
Yeah.
But, to live off of the harvest, and I will provide for you, but you are not going to work for this year or 2 years even. We would have just died and been like, I can't not work. Or I would be like, I'm going to secretly go over here in this corner of the land and I'm going to work.
I'm going to knit things or plant things.
Because I don't trust you, Lord, is what it's all saying.
It's like eating the manna.
Yeah.
I know. So, I just was so appreciative of the way they made us pause. Because then what they did that gave me so much anxiety on this piece of paper was not just write your lifetime legacy. Then we had to write our top 5 goals for our lifetime. And I'm telling y'all this because this is so important for all of us to consider. And also, I'm having my spouse and my children consider these things too, because time is a fixed resource that we're supposed to steward well. And another takeaway I had from the leader who was so great, her name was Val, and Val said, just take your mornings back. Everybody has 5, get up 5 minutes earlier, but just to set your intention. And of course we do that through the context of scripture, but we looked at, okay, here are my 5 lifetime goals. And then this is the one that really gave me anxiety. We looked at 10-year goals, and she had us write at the top of the page what that date will be 10 years from now. And then I had to write my age 10 years from now, my husband's age, and my 2 children's ages. And I don't know why that made me so anxious.
Oh, yeah.
But it really did. And then in light of the goals for our lifetime, what will that look like in 10 years? And then we did the same thing with 3 years from now. How old will I be? And how old will they be? And what do I want my life to look like? And the whole exercise was called My Great Life, My Great Decade. And then we looked at 1 year from now and then 90 days from now. And it just made me very much want to recalibrate and just not in a performance way, not have more things to do. But I know that there is a lot of time that I'd zone out, that I'm on my phone. We've had this conversation, I don't know how many times, but it just required me to hit the pause button on all the legal things that I have to do that are required in my work and consider as a whole, what do I want my life to be? And my career is such a small part of it when you zoom out.
But it feels like the biggest part of it.
It does. And I don't want perspective. It just it gave me when you can just step away. That's one benefit of the Sabbath rest, when we can truly shut down and not get on email and not any work things, just truly pause. We can recharge with the Lord. We can recalibrate on what matters. We can be creative again, going on walks. They said, if you want to reset your nervous system, go for a walk. Hello. How many times have we talked about that? And how we are pumping out so much cortisol because our brains don't know the difference in there is a tiger coming at me that wants to eat me versus this man sent me a mean email and he's mad at me.
That's a whole trend on TikTok right now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Like your cerebral?
Like I can't tell the difference between the two.
Your amygdala or something.
Isn't that
she
so
started
sad?
using all these words, and I was like, okay, this is some neuroplasticity, because she also said you can rewire your brain.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is every single world colliding at once. And I was so grateful to hear that in a professional setting.
Yeah.
But it was just so important to... I don't know.
Let me, we'll close with this.
Yeah, make this spiritual.
Well, it makes me think, we could keep talking about this for 2 hours, but if I haven't shared, I'm not going to share it right now for the sake of time, but if I've never shared the story here on the podcast of where I learned that time is not mine. So whether you're talking about 90 days, a week from now, a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, I think even more so as you're considering goals, as you're considering who am I today and who am I trying to become in this one lifetime that we get, and we never know how long this life is going to last. We don't know. The Lord has numbered our days, and He doesn't reveal that to us until it's over. Then we know. Then our family knows. But time is not ours. And so I've learned this. Angela's heard me share this story. I share it many times. I shared it in Leadership Union recently. and it's Dr. Dubb's story of time and how a situation occurred. I will share that again later. But as a result, in one context, I shared this story with a group of students, our FCA lead team, and then one of the students that's on the lead team, Thad, he's on our men's soccer team, he sent me a text, and this is coming from C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters. And this is what he said. He said, I'm sharing this because it made me think about Fran's story about Dr. Dubb with time. So as you consider all of the things that we've talked about the second half of this podcast, I think you've got to put it in greater context of this is the Lord's time. Mm-hmm. And let's not just create another checklist of things to try to accomplish.
Yep.
We don't want to do that because we could easily fall into that trap of another set of things that I am trying to control. And I think that another conversation, side note, that I had with a student this week was, I think it's a fine line between stewardship and control. We can call it stewardship, but I think essentially maybe what we're doing is trying to control.
We manipulate anything we can manipulate.
Everything. Okay, so back to time. The Lord created it way back in Genesis. When he began creation is when time began. There was no time before that. He just existed. But as soon as creation began, day 1, day 2, all of that became the very beginning of time, okay? And time has always existed. Sun up, sun down, months, years, seasons, all of it, time. Okay, so this is what Thad read in the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, and he shared. And y'all, this is just, man, mic drop, profound, C.S. Lewis. There's 3 things here. We'll end here. Number 1, we don't own our time, so it can never be stolen from us.
Oh, wow.
We do not, let me repeat that. We don't own our time, so it can never be stolen from us. Number 2, and similarly, we don't sacrifice our time for church or reading the Bible or prayer or gathering together because you cannot sacrifice something that was never yours to begin with.
Whoa.
Holy smokes.
Whoa.
I'll read that one more time. And similarly, we don't sacrifice our time for church, reading the Bible, or prayer, or gathering together because you can't sacrifice something that was never yours to begin with. Number 3, this is the easiest one to digest. Number 3, our time is given to us, and it's our responsibility, if we choose to be followers of Christ, to give it back to Him. So it really does cause you to think about, I can make all these decisions, I can make all these plans, but everything beginning with time, and then everything that He gives to us that is within that time, it is His. It's always been His. And we choose what we do with it that is honoring to us as children of God, and then is honoring and glorifying back to Him. That's what it always comes down to. But man alive, do we try so hard to control and manipulate so many things and call it good. And so I think that as we evaluate who we are and what we're doing, you just have to you just have to make a decision. If that seems very overwhelming, that time frame of a week or 30, 90 days, a year, 10 years, I say to you all the time, you don't have to figure out your life. Just figure out what's best for today.
And just to know, top of mind, who am I becoming? There's something bigger.
Right.
And I'm moving toward and growing into who God made me to be.
And constantly evaluating that.
Yes. And the devil wants us so busy and so distracted, and couple that with the still small voice of the Lord that we are going to miss if we're not giving time and space to hear from Him. That's my takeaway. I'm sitting in this secular training that I went to that did make sense I wish somebody evangelistic had
Right.
also been there.
But you get to filter it through the lens of your relationship with the Lord.
Yes,
Praise God for that.
And praise God for what you just shared, because what you said now is kind of the ribbon wrapped around all this in my brain of, okay, careers, zoom out, time management, I need to do better, not as in a striving way, but just creating space and keeping
Right.
perspective. And then what you just said, I need to write that down and keep it in front of me. That's so good.
Oh man, and Thad is like a sophomore in college, and he sent that in our group text, and I was like, "Dang alive!"
Mic drop
Yeah,
moment.
I wish that I had the intelligence to like talk about that, because I haven't. I sit in it, and those quotes or those comments have come up in other conversations over the last few months, and we'll try to start navigating what that really means and our struggle with it as a human being when it comes to time.
We need Dr. Dub to come explain the screw tape letters to us.
Oh, man alive. I read the screw tape letters so many years ago, probably when my kids, I don't remember how.
We need Cliff Notes.
Oh, God, yeah. Anyway. Okay, the name of this podcast will be Rambling About New Orleans and Jesus, because who would have thought those two things would have gone together?
I love it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Whoo, law. Mercy. What a show.
We're all educated and trained up and ready for March and sunshine.
Yes, it's coming, y'all. It's coming. Okay, everybody. Y'all have a fantastic day and week. As always, we love you so much. Thanks for listening.